If you struggle with anxiety, I am here today sharing a hot tip. This is something I teach almost all of my clients. I use daily in my own life, and I know it's going to help you with your anxiety. So sit back, settle in, and let's talk. Hey y'all, welcome back. In case you are new here or we don't know each other, my name is Dr. Allison and I am a licensed clinical psychologist, and I've pretty much made it my life mission to simplify psychology, so to break down the science and all these concepts that I know to help you live a healthier and more meaningful life. Years ago, I heard a phrase, anxiety is just imagination. And I thought long and hard about that phrase ever since. And while I'm not crazy about the word just, I think it can be a little minimizing. Anxiety is actually pretty complex and nuanced, and so I think the word just can be a little dismissive. But outside of that word just, I really like that statement. Anxiety is imagination. When you struggle with anxiety, your brain has an incredible ability to predict the worst case scenario. When you struggle with anxiety, your brain has this amazing ability to consider or find the worst possible explanation or possible outcome. So a friend sees your text or your snap and doesn't send you anything back, and you're convinced that they're mad at you. Your boss emails you to set up a meeting and you're certain you're going to be in trouble or get fired. You have a new and somewhat unusual health symptom, and after Googling for a few seconds, you're convinced that you have cancer. In each of these situations, your brain is predicting the worst. It imagines, predicts, and then believes that to be the truth. Let's be clear, it doesn't know, it imagines. Anxiety is imagination. So here's where things get cool. If anxiety is imagination, and you already have high anxiety and you already have a good imagination, then you can harness that same power of imagination to help you reduce your anxiety. You can harness that same imagination to help you manage your anxiety and help you think of other possible outcomes. Let's look at an example. Let's say your boss emails you to set up a meeting, and your first thought is, crap, I'm in trouble. Your anxiety tells you that you might get fired or you're definitely going to get in trouble. Now, remember, your brain doesn't know this. It's imagining this and then believing this to be the truth. So let's harness that imagination. Let's imagine all the possible reasons that your boss could want to meet. Now, sure, your brain has already imagined one, which is you're in trouble and you're going to get fired. And I'm going to acknowledge that's a possibility. If we're talking imagination, sure, it's a possibility. Your brain has predicted that one. It's a possibility. Now, let's use our imagination to consider other possible explanations. Maybe your boss wants to follow up on a project or a task that you completed. Maybe your boss wants to talk about some restructuring in the organization or to the team. Maybe your boss wants to talk about new work from home options post-COVID. Maybe your boss wants to ask for feedback about how they're doing as a supervisor. Maybe your boss wants to talk through a new task that they're going to give you, but they're not really sure if you're ready for or how you might handle it. Maybe your boss is going to tell you they're going on parental leave. Maybe they're going to tell you they're leaving the company. Maybe they're going to tell you great customer feedback they got about you, or maybe you're going to get a raise. Your anxiety wants you to imagine this one awful, terrible outcome. And sure, it's a possibility, but there are so many other possible outcomes and explanations, and you can use your imagination, the same one your anxiety is already tapping into, to help you consider other possibilities and dramatically reduce your anxiety. Imagination involves creative thinking outside of the box, stretching what your brain knows or thinks is the truth. I do want to be clear that imagination isn't always easy. Now, sure, if you ask me to imagine how I would spend money if I won the lottery, that is very simple. If you ask me to imagine all the places on my travel list post-COVID and also not having a toddler, I can think of so many. That imagination is easy. But if you ask me, or if I ask you to think of things outside of what your anxiety is telling you is the truth or is a possibility, y'all, that is much harder. If you're anxious, your brain is naturally gonna imagine that one worst case scenario. But again, you can work to harness that imagination to consider all these other possibilities. So when you feel anxious and when your brain is predicting the worst and imagining the worst, here's what I want you to do. Let yourself acknowledge the worst, all right? It's a possibility, so I'm gonna let you acknowledge it. Then, immediately after, I want you to challenge yourself to imagine, get creative, no matter how hard it is, and think of all the other possible outcomes. Think of all the other possible explanations. Name them, acknowledge them, and think about them as real possibilities. That effort, that imagination, it is how you poke little holes in your anxiety. It is how you cast doubt on what your anxiety tells you is certain. It isn't always easy, but y'all, I didn't say what we were doing here was easy, right? Managing anxiety isn't easy. So you're gonna have to work, you're gonna have to get creative, but if you struggle with anxiety, we already know you've got a good imagination. So when your anxiety pops up this week, use your imagination. You already have the skill. If you struggle with anxiety, we already know you have an awesome imagination. Use that and harness it to consider all of the potential and possible explanations and outcomes. When you do that, when you get creative, when you think outside the box, when you harness your imagination, you will be amazed at how much your anxiety comes down. That is your homework. That is your challenge, to use your imagination. As always, thank you so much for being here on my channel and watching this video. It is a privilege for me to be able to help you manage what life is throwing your way. If you want more good stuff like this, subscribe so you're the first to know about videos. Check out my videos. Y'all, I got a lot. Take a deep dive. Look around. There's so much on my channel. And of course, you can also check out my website, drallisonanswers.com. Thank you so much. Go use your imagination, and I'll see you back here real soon for the next video. Bye-bye.